Well, Mr. Albee, I have a question.
But some of these pregnancies go on for 3 months. Some of them go on for 5 years. But I think inspiration is merely an idea generating, forming itself in the unconscious, turning into a play if one is a playwright, turning into a novel if one is a novelist, turning into a poem if one is a poet, turning into a string quartet if one is a composer, turning into a painting if one is a painter, and moving into its own necessity and reality.
Mr. Albee, when you first saw Irene Worth in a production of T.S. Eliot's The Cocktail Party, you realized then that you wanted her to appear in some of your work. Could you?
Yes, but at that point I hadn't written any work.
Yes, but could you reflect back on some of your leading ladies like Irene Worth, Sudie Bond, and Uta Hagen?
Well, I've been a very, very fortunate playwright. I've worked with an awful lot of very, very good actors and actresses in America and England and Europe and various other places. I've been very fortunate that a lot of first-rate people have wanted to be in my plays, which is very, very nice. What I look for when I'm casting a play is an actor or actress, because I've worked with just as many good actors as I have actresses, but everybody likes to talk about actresses more than actors. I don't know why. Equity should have something to do with this, I think. I look for an actor who has the intelligence and creativity to both become the character completely and retain sufficient sense of self as an actor to accomplish both at the same time, which is what great acting is about. Not losing oneself into the character, but remaining able to do both. So I've been very, very fortunate. Yes, I remember seeing Irene Worth in The Cocktail Party in 1952 perhaps. I didn't write the Zoo Story until 1958, and she couldn't be in that anyway. But I do remember thinking, hey, if I ever become a playwright, that's a good one. I want to work with her. Then, of course, I ran into an awful lot of other actresses that I was able to work with. I first saw Uta Hagen long before I wrote a play. I saw Uta doing Ugo Betti's play Island of Goats, in which she bleated like a goat in a way that was so extraordinary that I can't forget it even now. I saw Sudie Bond before I began writing plays. I saw Sudie Bond in a play called Bertha, Queen of Norway, written by the alas late poet Kenneth Koch. It was a play about this mad Queen of Norway who wanted to invade people all the time and ended up invading Norway, her own country. It was a wonderful, tiny little avant-garde play, and Sudie was glorious in it. I suppose I was accumulating actors and actresses that I wanted to work with if ever I wrote a play. And so when I did start writing plays, I had this whole list of people that I was ready to work with.
There's a question from Colonel Carlson.
Would you please address the off-Broadway, your opinions of it, and your role in establishing it, and then off-Broadway?
The gentleman was asking a question about the birth and death, unfortunately, of both off-Broadway and off-Broadway. I became aware of both of these theatrical phenomenons in New York City, of course, in Greenwich Village, where I was living, where Broadway was doing its usual middle-brow stuff in the 50s. But a lot of us in the small theaters, usually below 14th Street, the 100-seat, 200-seat theaters, were seeing wonderful productions by Samuel Beckett and Ionesco and Genet and Brecht and Pirandello and all the wonderful European avant-garde playwrights. And then we began to see a whole new generation of plays by young American playwrights. And theater became a very, very exciting place to go. Even Broadway was doing a couple of interesting plays. It, by that point, was not filled with nothing but lugubrious musicals. It still did a couple of middle-brow adventuresome plays from time to time. And theater began to spread in the United States. And serious theater became more and more available to people. And serious plays by young playwrights started being done in our universities except on graduation day, of course. And there was always a production of Oklahoma. It was an exciting time in theater. This went on through most of the 60s and 70s, and began to spread around the country, regional theaters all over the United States, small theaters that were doing serious work. Then things began to change, unfortunately. Unfortunately, the dead hand of commerce started moving in, and the off-Broadway and off-Broadway theater became very, very expensive to mount, very expensive to go to see, and it lost its contact with the young and new audience that a theater has to have to be a vital experience. Our theater is unfortunately in much worse shape now than it was 35 years ago, because the dollar is getting completely in the way of a young playwright being able to reach a large audience. I don't know how many people under 30 in this country ever get to go to the theater. It is considered an occupation for the rest of us. While theater should be and can be and is at its very best one of the most exciting, adventuresome, avant-garde, threatening, and wonderful experiences that theater can have. Theater is not made up of these dreadful musicals and lugubrious non-plays that infest our theater. I don't know how you solve the problem. The problem is there because in American theater, as in all commercial theater, people are given what they want. And until people change the definition of what they want, they'll be given shit. It's that simple.
Thank you.
Mr. Albee, there's a question from the gentleman in the middle here.
Yes. What role did your expulsion from Trinity College play in the development of your work?
The gentleman wants to know what role my expulsion from Trinity College had to do with the development of my work. Well, I got to college, having graduated from the Choate School, finally. Not very well, but all right. I arrived at Trinity College, my assumption being that you get to college, you're an adult, and you should have some say about your fate. And I arrived at Trinity College and discovered that for my first 2 years there, I was expected to participate in something called required courses. I took a look at these required courses, and I, a writer since the age of 8, I discovered that these required courses were not courses that I required. So I didn't go to them. I went to the stuff that the seniors were taking. I sat in on all the good stuff that the seniors were taking. And so for 1.5 years, until they caught up with me, I was getting a very, very good education on the graduating level, of course being marked absent and therefore failing all my required courses. I explained my point of view to the management, that I was the one being educated. I should have some say as to the nature of my education. They explained their point of view, which was they owned the real estate. And they'd educate me as they saw fit, and if I didn't like it, I could leave. Well, I didn't, and therefore I did. I think that if they had allowed me to stay there and learn something useful to me, and take whatever courses I wanted to, I would have stayed there longer. But one thing I had learned at the Choate School before I got to college was this, that the function of a formal education is to teach you how to educate yourself once you're finished with your formal education. They taught me all about that.